This talk is a continuation of the previous, which was stay where you are and about self-inquiry. Because I think this is one of the keys to like what you might just call ordinary people, regular people, good people. And sometimes we find ourselves overpowered in life. We get carried along with negativity, or we end up being a personality that we don't particularly like, and we keep looking for outside answers. Is it money? Is it moving? Is it a different job? Are we fed up with different things? And like I said in the first talk about this, we seem to always look on the outside for the solutions. And yet, if we could become content within ourselves, then we'd be okay. But that's sometimes a hard thing to believe, isn't it? There you are in a situation, and you're not happy with it. And it's hard to believe that that mood and that antagonistic feeling you've got towards things can shift. But I'm somebody who's come along to tell you, hey, it can shift and it can change, and you can change your whole world without anything on the outside having changed at all. My first experience of this was a very long time ago, and I was a young man. I think I was 22, and it was the last time I was in prison, a long time ago. And I went through such a big shift inside myself. I was doing therapy, and what I'd basically done, the top and bottom of it was, I got to the very heart of a thing called self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is something that comes out of ancient Eastern mysticism, and there's all sorts of names that it's given, which I can't quite remember right now, but it doesn't matter. But I came across it just by a practical trying to figure out life, and it changed my life completely at that time, and it's changed my pathway all along the way. So let me just try and explain it a little bit. I think I've touched upon it in some of my videos, really, but I like to come at different angles on things because it helps. The top and bottom of my self-inquiry was this. There I was with my personality, with my ways. So you could say that was who I was. This is what I was known as, the personality that I was walking in, the way I acted and everything else. But what I also knew was that somebody else was inside of me. And what I mean by somebody else is my true self. It was like the more honest version of who I really was inside. But the outside person, the sort of shell, the persona, was afraid to be the inner person, Now, I didn't realize at the time that they were two very different things. The never the twain shall meet kind of thing. They are quite separate, and that came as a shock to me. It might come as a shock to you. But I came to realize more and more at that time that who I truly am was trapped inside of something that I was not, something that was a false act. But that false act, that sort of what you call a persona, had a really strong grip, a real power. But the way that the grip and the power of that was broken was purely by recognizing and standing in who I truly was and being able to see this false thing on the other side. And it was only when I looked back afterwards, I didn't know what I was doing. I just did what I did out of pure instinct. But looking back afterwards, it was clear to see that once you find who you really are and you stand in who you really are, and even if the persona on the outside is complaining and kicking up a fuss and everything else, if you just stay with it, just stay there and ride the storm, say, it doesn't matter how much you kick off. I've seen all this before. You're just miserable. You you're just miserable about everything. You're just finding the negative and the downside of things, or the aggressive side of things, the violent side of things. That's how it was for me. And anyway, just by making that recognition, it broke. Maybe as you listen to this, you recognize something about that for yourself. These things are very private. It's not something we go around talking about. You could be laying in your bed listening to this, like I sometimes do with talks. I listen to things on my phone, and very interesting talks by people, and I'm sort of closing my eyes and I go to sleep, and then you hear something, you go, you know what, there's a key right there. And whether you're a man or a woman, old or young, maybe that who you really are, and maybe that the outer person is completely false. Now, in the previous talk, I mentioned how there's a discontentment. One of the things about let's just go back to when we were young. The false person started to be built actually when we're very young, but the most visible sign of it comes in adolescence. I can clearly remember being a kind of nice boy, really. I was okay, I was just like everybody else. And you're floating along in life, playing games and doing your schoolwork and blah, blah, blah. And life was okay. I used to read my encyclopedias, I had the curiosities about life and maps. I loved looking at maps of the world and things like that. Just a kid. But then about 11, 10, I don't know, somewhere in there, this age, it was almost like a physical other side of me rose up and started to suffocate that boy, started to push him down and say, no, you're too weak. We have to be strong, and we don't want your sentimentalities. We don't want your babiness. You're nobody. And I sort of can almost physically remember seeing this happen. And it's like being carried away with the tide. You think, well, I suppose I'll just go with this, But there was no real explanation from anybody, or it was very hard to understand. But the trouble is that the personality that took over was a more miserable personality. It was always striving to grow up and striving to fit and striving to be this and striving to be that. As I like to say about the mind, because it's the mind that does all that, it's always striving and never arriving, It's the minute it seems to find one peak of happiness, it seems then to be a false plateau, and another peak's out there, and you got to get up that one to be happy and to be content and to be somebody, and it's just a never-ending game. I've mentioned in the last talk about this, about consumerism, that consumerism feeds the unhappiness, the general malaise in people. People have got good things, they're not criminals, they're not doing any harm, but they're just constantly having to feed some empty hole inside themselves. There's an ancient story about a man who went to see a king in the East, and he said, everything you put into this bowl, it will disappear. And the king said, no way, And so he started to put things in, and everything disappeared, And the picture of it was of mankind. He's got this thing inside of him that it doesn't matter what you put in. It might satisfy momentarily a little while, but then it's gone. It's not satisfied anymore, And the reason I talk about this is because the part of us that's real is not like that at all. The part of us that is the true part of ourselves, which was taken over by the mind, by this persona, that part doesn't go searching for things. That part, even if it did build some kind of organization or build a home or, whatever it does, it doesn't do it out of desperation and angst and it doesn't then find itself unhappy, because it just is okay. These are very difficult things to grasp, but I hope you can get it. When you are driven by your mind, the thing that created your persona, that thing can't find happiness. It's always pursuing it. It'll even reach the point in life where it will hear about mindfulness and think, oh, that's interesting. and it will hear about meditation and some kind of spirituality, maybe even attached to a religion or whatever. And so it becomes a noble quest to find good things, and you start buying books and listening to tapes and doing all sorts of things. But then, because it's driven by the mind, this quest, again, it keeps finding false peaks. It's like you just think that you've gotten there. Oh yeah, man, I've found it, and then it sort of slips out of your hands and it's gone away down the river. And it's okay, it's good knowledge, it's good information. You kind of have got it, but it hasn't really delivered you to the shoreline of where you wanted to go. And that's because the mind can't do that. The mind, in all of its searching, cannot deliver you to the thing that you really need, the thing where you call home. It can't happen. Now, I'd just like to throw a little spin on this and looking at something like martial arts, okay? In my journey through my life with these things, I've often felt like the roots of martial arts and all of its ancient craft is actually all about this. And what I mean by that is, I've learned that the mind and spurious thoughts that come from anywhere, which clearly are not mine, they're clearly not yours. We don't wake up and decide to think what we think. These things come, and then the mind wants to negotiate with them, and next thing it's got a problem, and then it's trying to solve it, and there's no problem in the first place. It's all candy floss, cotton candy, it's all made up. It's not even real, everything's just okay. And this thing is made up. And but there's a sense in which once you learn that and you can make the distinction and you can sit back and you go, wow, whoa, you can feel the distress and you can feel the pain and the trouble there. But because you know who you are and you're looking at it from who you are, making the distinction, creating the gap, then the thing never lasts long. Because it only can gain any power by you thinking that's your thought, by you thinking that's you thinking the whole thing is you. But when you learn that you are something else entirely, then it doesn't happen. So this is where the martial arts come in. I go through my life and you go through your life and we learn these things. And these things are not stupid, these thoughts and these ideas. They pick their moments. And suddenly they're in there. Suddenly they're creeping up on you, or they jump on you, And we have to be quick on our feet. We have to move and say, whoa, no way, There's no conflict, physical conflict, but the movement, you can almost move your body in a physical way, as to say, oh, no. Oh, I can see what this is. You're just some thoughts, and you're there, and I'm over here, I sometimes also point people towards the final part of that great film, Beautiful Mind, which is about John Nash, the mathematician in America. A super film. And he'd had schizophrenia for 30 years. He struggled with it. And he lost his job in Princeton University, but he fought, really took it on. And managed to get back to teaching. He wasn't always completely well, but in the end he got his Nobel Prize, and he was an older man then. And one of his friends, there was a great piece of drama at the end of it, because there'd been 3 people who only existed in his mind, and he'd driven him mad, sort of protagonists of his madness, really. Very similar to our minds being haunted by thoughts, there's not a lot of difference in these things. And at the end of the film, one of his friends come up, and said to him, "Oh, well done, John. Congratulations on your Nobel Prize." And he said, "Do you still see things?" It's just being a cheeky question. And it was a great bit of filming, because John didn't answer the question. You just see him turn his head, and he looks across the room, right a long way across this big room, and there's 3 people. But they're not close anymore. They're sort of way across, and they really can't get his attention anymore. And that's what I mean, see. It's like those 3 protagonists could be the thoughts and the emotions and the, just random stuff that make us unhappy. But we can get into a place where we know who we are, We can stay in that, and we can stand our ground when those things come around. And so they start to be further across the room. They can't quite get in. But it can start before that. We might have to go through what I just call like the martial arts side of it. We might have to learn how to evade the thing. Like Aikido. Aikido is a great skill of, like, when your opponent comes, you're always watching which way their weight is turning, and you turn with it, see, and that's how you throw them. That's how you evade the attack, and that's what we have to learn to do. We have to take responsibility for these things and learn how to turn away, stand as who we are, and look back at the thoughts and the ideas that are dark, trying to drag you down, being critical, being negative, and say, well, that's you. You're just Mr. Storm Cloud here again, but I'm not going with you. You're you and I'm me, and that's it, So I just wanted to say those things because it is a huge subject, self-inquiry. And I suppose I'll finish off here by just saying, I suppose, a definition of self-inquiry. We think that everything that goes on, that the random thoughts that pop in and then pop out, and they're like flies, aren't they? We think that's us. Well, they're not. And then we think that the part of us that would consider those thoughts and start getting depressed, might need to go and have a cigarette and calm your nerves, have a drink. You start furrowing your brow. Well, that's another part, which is the mind part that took over who we truly are when we were young, okay? So that's not who we really are either, because it's just a mind idea. It's the mind's idea of who it thinks you are. So you've got these random thoughts, they're not who you are. They're trying to attract the part of you that took over your life, which is the sort of persona, and that's not who you are, because it's just a presenting face, a face that you present to the world, which actually is not really honest. It's not a true face. The true you is inside of all that. It's the true you can watch the persona, recognize the persona, and recognize the thoughts. But strangely enough, those random thoughts that come, they're not able to observe who you really are, and the part that took over you can't do that either. You see, that's the difference. The observer, the watcher, the one who's aware of all these things, that's who you truly are. And the nature of who you truly are is utterly different than those things. So self-inquiry is this: that which you thought was yourself, you can now inquire. Where are you coming from? Why do you pretend that you're me? What is it you're trying to do? I don't see a problem. You seem to be convincing me here that there's a big problem and doom and gloom and all the things that come. And so you're making the inquiry, and the inquiry itself contains huge power. I can give you some stories, which I'll probably wait for another talk, where I've recognized this, like the big thing comes to sort of have a go at me kind of thing, trying to drag me down. And it seems so massive, It seems as if it fills the whole sky. And the part of me that's standing up to it is only little, But amazingly, you only have to be true. The part of you that stands up to it only has to be true, and it will defeat that whole big thing. So it doesn't matter how small it seems, it will bring down the whole facade. So I hope that helps. It certainly set me free and helped me over the years. Thank you.